Let's do this. Oh god, it's been so long. Okay, so let's see if I remember how to even do this. How do my videos start? I don't remember. We're just winging it at this point. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. It has been a while. And by a while, I mean like 10 months. I suddenly up and disappeared around July of last year, and I have a good excuse. Okay, so I'll try to explain myself. So in August of last year, I started a new job. I started my first ever full-time teaching job while also, you know, working on my master's. So it's been a wild ride. It's been an adjustment, and I've also been extremely busy. And along with being extremely busy, haven't had a lot of time for reading in general, or you know, other hobbies. So really this channel has fallen by the wayside. It has been one of the things that I have had to sacrifice. I'm not super happy about that, but at the same time, you know, I was getting accustomed to being in this job, in which requires a lot of my time and a lot of my self. It's been hard. It has been very challenging, but also it was a very rewarding, it has been a very rewarding experience. I've gotten to meet some great people, and I will be teaching next year as well. So why am I sitting in front of my camera now? Well, as I am closing my first year as a full-time teacher, I'm hoping that next year I will have more time, because I've been doing this for a year now, so I kind of know what to expect. I kind of know what I'm doing now, not just like stumbling in the dark and hoping, you know, that I don't trip over a cliff. I'm hoping that things will be better next year, and so I will have more time to dedicate to this channel, because I do miss making videos and talking about books and just reading in general. So I'm hoping to be a little bit more consistent with filming, editing, and posting. I'm not gonna commit to a schedule because that's just not feasible for me. Sometimes my weeks are pretty regular, sometimes they're not, so just committing to a filming and posting schedule is not something that I can do, but I'm gonna make an attempt. Definitely in the summer, you're gonna see more of my face than you'll see during the semester, because I don't work during the summer, right? I have June and July completely free, so you'll definitely see more of my face then. Hopefully you'll see my face pretty regularly during the semester as well. Some highlights are also that I finished my second year of master's study. I only have another year left. Originally I was only supposed to do my master's in 2 years, but because I took on this full-time job, I couldn't also take on full-time master's studies, so I extended my master's for a year, which has been, you know, fine. But you know, I have another year left. Hopefully I'm gonna graduate in May. Anyway, in this whole long video that I am filming right now, I wanted to explain first where I've been, which I just did, that hopefully I will be around more. And also I wanted to give like a mini 2021 wrap up, because I never did it. I never did mine in December like I did in 2020. So I was hoping to do that, and also give like a mid-year check-in. I'm not gonna do the mid-year book freakout tag this year, because honestly I haven't read enough to satisfactorily answer those questions. So I'm just gonna do a tiny like check-in like right now in this video. So yeah, let's do a mini 2021 wrap up, and then I'll give my 2022 check-in. Okay, Goodreads goals, that's always the first one. So my Goodreads goal for 2021 was 50 books, which I surpassed halfway through the year in June, and I ended up reading 89 books, which is fabulous considering how busy I was in the second half of the year, but also very irritating because I like nice round numbers, and 89 is a very ugly number and I hate it, but it's what I was able to read. I picked out 2 books that were like sort of my favorites that I read in 2021, and the one book that is the scourge of the year. I always have that one book that's just the scourge of the year. Fave books from 2021 were Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. This is one of his standalone novels from the Cosmere. I really liked this book, okay? This was really good. I freaking enjoyed this novel so much. I really liked the main characters and the story. It was a little slow in the middle, but Brandon Sanderson's books tend to be slightly slow in the middle, but I was really happy with the story and I really enjoyed it the entire way through. I think I might have listened to the audiobook in literally a single sitting. So yeah, this was definitely a fave from 2021. Gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. So my other favorite book from 2021 was Dangerous Books for Girls by Maya Rodell. And this book is subtitled The Bad Reputation of Romance Novels Explained. And it's a nonfiction book, and I fell in love with this book. It took me a couple months to read it. Firstly, because I don't read nonfiction super often, which is something that I'm trying to change. But it takes me a minute to get through it. And also because when I started this book, it was towards late July. And then I started my job in August. So it got put off. I ended up finishing it somewhere around November when I started it in July. But I persisted and I finished it. But I really, really enjoyed it, and it really, you know, made me see romance in a very different way. When I started my booktube journey, I was not the biggest fan of romance. And somewhere along the way, I kind of fell in love with it. And this book really made me see it in a very different light. And it made me fall in love with the genre even more. And, you know, I have very deep respect for anybody that writes romance, because that should be hard. It's really hard. I've had a journey with the romance genre in which I have now found myself very much enjoying it, because I realized that romance, much like all sorts of literature, it's about finding what you like and the things that you enjoy. And once you find romance books that are written for you, that are, you know, with the tropes that you like, with the amount of, you know, smut that you like, once you find the romance novels that fall within the parameters of the things that you enjoy, you're gonna fall in love with the genre just as you would with anything else. So, you know, I've had a journey. And this book definitely, you know, helped me out with that. The worst book that I read in 2021 is Hunger of Memory by Richard Rodriguez. I read this for the master's class that I was taking in August of 2021. I read a lot of great stuff for that class, but that book was just not it. I didn't agree with a lot of what Richard Rodriguez was trying to get across, and also, like, it was just a slog to read, so it was just, I didn't enjoy it. It's the book that irks me. Yeah. So I'd originally set 4 goals for 2021, right? And I can link up the video, the original video that I did of me setting up my goals and explaining what all my goals were. I'll link it up there instead of me just rehashing that right now. So basically, to sum it up, my goals were to read more in Spanish, to read more nonfiction, to read more classics, and to read a significant chunk of my physical TBR. Significant being a vague number that I never established. Just, I wanted to get through some of my physical TBR. My original intention for the Spanish nonfiction and classics categories was that I would read 4 books from each category, because 12 months in the year, 3 categories, you know, you do the math, right? So in terms of those goals, I completely failed at my reading more in Spanish goal. Like, completely failed, cero, like, didn't get through any books in Spanish at all. So, you know, epic fail. For nonfiction, I actually read 6 nonfiction books. So, you know, goal surpassed. And for classics, I read 3. So, you know, goal almost fully accomplished, right? So, you know, I feel pretty good about that. And as for the physical TBR, I read 7 books in my physical TBR, which is not a lot, but, you know, I'm happy with it. I also, you know, it's just that I read a lot of audiobooks that are unscripted, which usually the audiobooks that I read are books that I don't own. So that's how I end up reading 89 books, but only 7 from my physical TBR. And also because rereads are not counted on the physical TBR. But anyway, looking back on 2021, it was a good reading year. Not as good as 2020, but in 2020 I had a lot more time on my hands because we were mostly on lockdown for most of the year, so I had a lot of time on my hands to do a lot more reading. Overall, looking back at 2021, it was a good reading year. I read a lot of fun things, and I read a lot of interesting things, and I'm gonna name some of the ones that I read in a minute. And considering my working situation and that I was going through such a big change in like my professional life and like my everyday life, I'm pretty satisfied with it, especially because I look back on 2020 and yes, I had 2 jobs at the time, but they were part-time jobs, both of them. And also they didn't really require a lot of time from me, right? Because I was working at a store, So while I was at the store, I had one of my AirPods popped in and I was like listening to audiobooks on the daily. So that's how I was getting through so many books at a time. And also with my other job, I went into the office a couple hours a week, or I worked from home. So, you know, I had a lot more time on my hands to be reading. While in 2021, especially once I started my job in August, it required me to be at work for 8 hours a day, and also, you know, correcting time and just, you know, tending to my students and all that stuff. So by the time I got home, I was completely drained because my life had changed so drastically overnight. So considering all of those factors, I think 2021 was a pretty great reading year. The fact that I read anything in the second half of the year is amazing on its own. Pretty proud of all the things that I accomplished reading wise in 2021. I also, for the most part, managed to keep up with my reading journal. Of course, at the end of the year, I had, you know, a bunch of reviews to catch up on, just like now. I finished work this week and I will be catching up with my reviews when I'm done, because I have a massive backlog from the last 2 months because I've been reading, but I haven't necessarily had time to sit down and write reviews on my journal. But I am mostly, for the most part, keeping up with it, right? And I'm still doing it, and I still have that creative outlet, even though I'm incredibly busy all the time. For the most part, it's been good. Also, if you want to see me flip through my 2021 reading journal, all you gotta do is ask and I will do it. My last video is from July 2021, and I think that the last thing that I talked about was my June reading wrap up. I'm just gonna rapid fire go through some of the things that I read in 2021 from July to December. So I'm giving you the highlights. I'm not telling you everything that I read, just, you know, the major highlights of things that I like want to point out. So in July, I read The Chronicles of Narnia. I listened to the audiobook, the entire thing. I have been trying to read that for years, and I think we have like the massive full volume book somewhere in the house. And I've tried to read it a bunch of times throughout the years and I've never been able to get through it, but I finally just got the audiobook and it was good. It was a good reading experience. I enjoyed it for the most part. Some of the books were better than the others. Clearly, C.S. Lewis was just making it up as he went along. But, you know, I enjoyed it for the most part, and I liked being in the world and seeing how it was created. I have nothing interesting to talk about from August, but in September I read Elantris by Brandon Sanderson, which I've already talked about, and I read Saint by Sierra Simone, which is the third book in the Priest series, which I think should be retitled the Bell Brothers series because it follows each of the Bell brothers. Anyway, I read Saints and I absolutely loved it. It was fantastic, and I read it, I think, about a week after Sierra Simone released it. It was one of the few things in late 2021 that I like made sure that I read, because, you know, Sierra Simone is my queen and I'll read anything that she writes. So yeah, did that. Like I said, in November I finished Dangerous Books for Girls, and I also read Macbeth by William Shakespeare. I read this with my students, actually. We read this in class. I had 4 groups of seniors, so I read this basically 4 times. I am more well acquainted with this book than I ever thought that I would be. I don't think I can recite it backwards, but, you know, I know it pretty well by this point. I am going to be reading it again this year because I'm going to discuss it with my upcoming seniors. I really enjoyed Macbeth. I read 2 Shakespeare plays last year. I read Taming of the Shrew also to discuss with my seniors. Did not like the Taming of the Shrew, it was terrible, but did really enjoy Macbeth. And the other book that I wanted to point out that I read was Indestructible Object in December. It's a YA novel about this girl who just graduated high school and she's going to college next year, and she and her boyfriend break up, and it's this whole thing. But also the story mainly revolves around A, her breakup, but B, also her realizing that she might not want the traditional relationship, that she might be open to polyamory, basically, which is why I picked it up in the first place. And I read the audiobook and I freaking loved it. Those are basically my highlights from 2021. So let's get into 2022. So even though I know that I am a busy bitch, I'm still an ambitious bitch. So, you know, I upped my Goodreads reading challenge goal. In 2021, it was 50 and I read 89, and in 2022, it is 75 books. Will it go up in 23? I don't know, but so far, that's what we got. And I'm not doing that bad on my goal. So I'm not doing as well as other years because in 2020 and 2021, by this point of the year, I was almost done with my reading challenge. But I'm doing okay. Goodreads says I'm still ahead of schedule, so I think I'm doing okay. The goal for this year is 75 books, and I am up to 31. And I am currently reading 3 books. We're making progress. Anyway, as for reading goals, so the goal stayed the same as last year, right? Because again, and I said this in my 2021 reading goals video, these goals are because they are reading habits that I want to incorporate into my life, which is why I've set these goals. So just as last year, read more in Spanish, classics, nonfiction, and a chunk of my physical TBR. I'm doing pretty good so far. So I read 1 book in Spanish. It was a poetry book, but it was a book nonetheless. I read 5 classics, so I've already crushed that goal for the year. And I've read 1 nonfiction book, so we're doing good. And I have read 9 books from my physical TBR. So we are doing great. We've already surpassed the number from last year, so we're doing fabulous, if you ask me. Another reading goal that I have, that I also had last year and completely failed at, is the 12 books by 12 friends recommendation list, right? So last year, I think I got through 2, maybe. I don't think even that. Yeah, I think maybe I got through 2 last year. I'll look it up, wait. Okay, so I did make it through 3 books out of 12, which is not great. I did make the list again this year and people gave me their recommendations. So far, I've read 2 out of 12 and I'm currently working on the 3rd. I'm making a serious attempt to actually finish the list this year. I'm hoping to catch up in the summer with the books that I have backlogged from that list. I'm super excited about all of these, and I'm making a concerted effort to like put them into my reading lists and making sure that I read these books because I really want to finish the list this year. So those are my reading goals. I've picked out a fave and a least fave from the first half of 2022 from what I've already read. But first I'm gonna go through the reading highlights, right? So what I've read so far this year, just the highlights. In January, I read The Secret History. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. It was pretentious as fuck and I was really bored throughout a lot of it. And I'm a sucker for dark academia, but there's something about The Secret History that just wasn't floating my boat. I don't know why, but it wasn't it for me, you know? It was just fine. I enjoyed it, but I don't know. In February, I reread ACOTAR in like a week because God knows why. I don't know why I did that. I'm still not entirely sure why I did that, but I did. It was a thing I did. I read all 5 books? 6, 5, right? ACOTAR, ACOMAF, ACOWAR, ACOSAF, Zero Flames. Yeah, 5. Jesus, I can't even count anymore. So I reread that. I don't know why, but I did. That's a thing that I did with my February. And I also read The Bane Chronicles and Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, right? Because in 2020, I started with a group of friends to read the Shadowhunters Chronicles, and we sort of left off at these, and we sort of stopped after the Infernal Devices, and I kind of want to get back on that, especially because I have like all of them, so I should read them. So I went through those 2 anthologies. I really enjoyed them. It's probably the works by Cassandra Clare that I've enjoyed the most, and I have a theory as to why. One is that they were co-written. She didn't write them by herself, and also they were short stories, right? It's an anthology, a collection of What Were You, but it's usually short, so it's pretty self-contained. Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy does follow a single character through a particular journey, but it's still like contained short stories within this year of this character's life. So I found that way more enjoyable than her novels. And as for the Bane Chronicles, it's short stories of, again, following the single character throughout the many years of their life, but it's short, contained stories, right? So I enjoyed these way more than I've enjoyed her novels, because I feel like her novels are very character driven, which again is not a bad thing, but she does try to incorporate plot, which just doesn't work when you don't know how to write plot. So, you know, I enjoy her novels to an extent, but I enjoyed the anthologies way more than I have ever enjoyed one of her novels. And I found myself way more gripped and attentive and, you know, wanting to keep reading, as opposed to when I read her novels that at times it can feel kind of like a drag. In March, I read The Alloy of Law, The Shadows of Self, and The Bands of Mourning, all Mistborn Era 2. I finally did it. I finally tackled Mistborn Era 2, which I was dreading because Mistborn Era 1 is everything to me, and I cried like a little bitch while reading it, and I am very attached to the characters from Mistborn Era 1, so I was very cautious and scared to read Era 2, but you know, I really enjoyed it. The tone is completely different, like absolutely different, but I do enjoy that it sets up this world post the events of Era 1, and we really get to live in it, right? And I also kind of like that it was a little bit more self-contained. It's not so much an end of the world plot, more just, you know, shitty people doing shitty things kind of situation, and the, you know, main character having to solve those shitty situations. And it's a more of a detective story, a mystery story, what were you? So, you know, I really enjoyed it. I liked that it was very different from Era 1, because I think that if they were similar, I wouldn't have liked it nearly as much as I did. In April, I started reading, and I finished in May, Sierra Simone's new Camelot trilogy. If you've been following me for a while, you know that I really enjoy Sierra Simone's works, and I kind of started backwards with her works. I started at Thornchapel, which is her most recent series, and then like read the pre-series, and then I read New Camelot, which I think is probably like her oldest series. I enjoyed it for the most part. Sierra Simone has such a particular way of doing the second book plot twist in literally the last 3 pages that I really enjoy, but also, you know, I could see it when it happened. I was like, oh, it's there. That's the plot twist. That's the thing she does. You don't really see that in the pre-series because each book follows one of the Bell brothers, so it's not like you know, an entire series just following one person. So you don't really get that in Sinner, which is the second book of that series. You don't get like the Sierra Simone twist at the very end, but you do get it in New Camelot. And I was like, when it happened, I was like, oh, okay. So I, you know, there are things that I can pick up from her writing that, you know, are things that she does generally in her work, which, you know, I'm not mad about. I really enjoyed it. And also the ending of the last book, bitch, I was so happy. For a second there, I was like legit concerned that I wasn't gonna get that happily ever after that I was being promised in this romance book, but I got it, and I wasn't even mad about it. So Sierra Simone continues to be my queen, so it's a thing. And in May, I read I Kissed Shara Wheeler, which is Casey McQuiston's new book and their first YA novel. I was a little hesitant to read Shara Wheeler, as pointed out by the fact that I don't own the book. I listened to the audiobook on Scribd because I am more and more moving away from YA. It's not that I don't enjoy it, it's just that, you know, I'm at a certain point in my life where I want slightly more adult stories. That's not a bad thing. That's not to say that YA is not good or important. It is. It's just right now I want something that's a little bit more adult, and that's perfectly fine. Reading tastes change. I'm still gonna read YA stuff from time to time, especially if I already own it or is published by one of my favorite authors. So I was hesitant to read it, especially because Casey McQuiston has such a particular way of writing. Their humor is so particular, and the way that the structure story is so particular, and I was really scared that that wouldn't come through in a YA story. But bitch, was I wrong. Like, I was wrong. I really enjoyed Shara Wheeler. Casey McQuiston's humor still shown through the way that she writes characters and found families and friendship groups and the way they structure stories. Everything that I love about her writing is still present in Shara Wheeler. I was very happy with it. And you know, I think part of the reason why I'm like moving away from YA stories, and especially when it comes to queer stories, is that I'm kind of over the whole coming out thing. I've read it in 1.5 million books. It's, you know, it's there. I've read it 1 million times. I want people living their lives, right? I think Casey McQuiston strikes a really good balance in I Kiss Shara Wheeler in, you know, handling both the people living their lives, like queer people living their lives aspect, as well as the coming out aspect. Our main character, she's out. She's out, she's living her life. Her mothers are lesbians and they're out and she's out and everybody's out. But also it does kind of deal with, you know, topics of like coming out when you live in rural fucking Alabama. I'm not entirely sure if it was rural Alabama, but it was definitely in Alabama. And you know, deals with those concerns. So I think Casey McQuiston struck a really great balance between, you know, living your life as a queer person and then just like also coming out. Those are basically the reading highlights from 2022. I am currently reading 3 books. I'm reading The Poppy War, I'm rereading Persuasion by Jane Austen, and I am reading Beach Read by Emily Henry, right? Yeah, that is her name. This book was lent to me by one of my former students, and so I am currently reading it. I have been reading it for about a week. I spent most of that week in the first 100 pages. In the last 2 days, I've read about 100 pages of this book. So, like yesterday, I read almost 100 pages of this book, and today I've read about like 50 pages of this book. And once I'm done with this, I'll probably go back to reading this book, because that's just how we work around here. We spend a week reading the first 100 pages, and then we zoom through the rest of it, you know, because I have no self-control. That's basically what I'm reading, where we're at reading-wise. The last thing for my 2022 mid-year check-in is fave thing that I've read and worst thing that I've read. Fave thing that I've read is definitely Mistborn Era 2. I really, really enjoyed it, and this is definitely one of the fave things that I read. Worst thing that I read in 2022 so far was definitely, without a doubt, The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. I read it to discuss it with my 10th grade students, and I read it for the first time. It's the first thing by Ernest Hemingway that I've ever read, and I hated it, and I absolutely hated it. Getting through it was a drag. Like, it was just bad. It was just bad. It was just, I hated the book, and my students hated it as well. That book was just, it was terrible. I never want to read it again. Actually, I have the physical book, and I'm not even showing it to you because I've hidden it somewhere in here, and I can't be bothered to get it out for the video. What are my plans for the rest of the year? Well, in the summer, I plan on catching up with reading and doing lots and lots of reading. I even like rearranged my nightstand, which is rather large for a nightstand, and put some of the books that I want to read this summer. Stuff that I've gathered throughout the years, some series that I want to finish, some books that have been on the TBR for a long, long time, and I just like need to crack them open, even if it's just to start them, and I'm working on them for a while. Especially, there's one particular book on that stack that's just, it's gonna take me a minute to get through it, and I just at least want to crack it open and get started on it. Even if like Dangerous Books for Girls, it spends like 4 months on my currently reading. Also, in the summer, I'm gonna be working on my PhD applications, which I'm really excited about. I'm gonna be applying to do a PhD in literature, which is gonna constitute a move. But I'm really excited to start working on that, and I'm really excited to eventually do my PhD. It's something that I've wanted to do for a really long time. It's one of those goals that I set for myself. You know, I'm really excited about that. In the summer, I also want to get in some heavy duty reading for my research essay that I have to do not this semester, next semester for my master's program. So I'm attempting to get done a good chunk of reading, try to outline it and decide what it is that I'm going to be writing about, and try to start sourcing, because I know I'm not going to have time during the semester to do that. So the more work I get done now, the easier my life will be. So I'll probably be reading lots of scholarly articles and stuff and annotating those and taking notes on them so that I can have like something to work off of come January. Also, like I said at the beginning of the video, I am going to be teaching again next year, and I'm really excited. And I'm going to be trying to, you know, strike that work-life balance, because I'm shit at it. But I'm going to make an actual like attempt at it. I got better this semester than I was last semester. It's a work in progress, you know? I think that's my long ass update. This video I think is gonna be ridiculously long. I'm hoping that I'll be able to film more videos and find time to edit them. I've really missed doing this and like talking to my camera and putting out videos, so I'm hoping that I'll get to do it more, especially over the summer, but I'm gonna try to like keep it consistent during the semester. So yeah, if there's any specific videos that you want to see, see from me, let me know and I will get on that. I don't think I'm doing a Pride Month reading vlog this year because honestly I just haven't planned it. Probably read a bunch of queer books anyway throughout the month of June, but you know, doing a vlog like I did last year, not gonna happen. Yeah, I have a bunch of ideas of things that I want to do and things that I want to revisit, and you know, I have fun things that I want to do on this channel. I'll definitely do a bunch of tag videos because tag videos are the best and I love them so much. If there's any particular tag that you want to see me do, just like let me know and I will do it because those are literally the easiest videos to film. And I filmed like a bunch of those in one sitting. It's great. I love them and they're fun to make and they're fun to edit. Anyway, that has been it for me for now. I've rambled on for long enough. I need to go. Thank you for spending this time with me. I hope you enjoyed that video. I don't remember if this is exactly how I did it, but this is how we're doing it right now. And I will see you very, very soon on the next one. Okay, bye.